What if I told you there was a chord progression that never ended? Well, I just did tell you. There is an endless cadence, and it seems to be the coolest, most epic sound you could possibly conjure in the music world, and I'm gonna show you what it is, why it works, and what you can do with it. Keep in mind, I'm gonna be going into a pretty good amount of music theory in this lesson, so if you're not familiar with music theory or wanna learn more from me, check out Guitar Super System. There's a link down below. We're gonna be talking a lot about triads, and that's where we're going to start. First, I'm going to show you the chord progression and the principles that make it work, and then I'm going to show you how we can deconstruct it and demystify it a little bit in order to understand it better. So you can start this chord progression on any minor chord. So we'll start with E minor. Now that we have that sound in your ear, this is the formula. It could keep going forever. Have I piqued your interest? I would call this the circle of sixths. Six. It is a cycle moving from one interval to the next, and that interval relationship is a sixth. If you noticed, I went from E minor down to C major. And if you want to count that up in the key of E minor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's the C. And you guessed it, 6 notes up from that respective C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A. And that was subsequently the next chord. So that is the trick. We want to go from a minor chord to a major chord with an interval of a sixth in between. And it's important to note that the sixth interval is diatonic to that respective key. So E minor, E natural minor, we're not playing do, re, mi. Those are not the correct notes. E minor is derived from the Aeolian mode. So the sixth interval in that mode, that will identify the next note that you go to and build that major chord on top of. And from there, we're in the major key respective to that note, so C major. And if you don't want to look at it from a music theory perspective like that, you can just look at it like this. Here's our first minor note, down 4 semitones, major, down 3 semitones. That's it, repeat. So look at it either way you want to, whatever works for you. What's the point of showing you this? Well, I mean, I guess there really isn't a point. What's the point of anything? The point I think is interesting is how you can take a concept like this, because it sounds so good. I guess that's the point, is when you're practicing and trying to learn music theory or trying to come up with any way to make practice less dull, I use this in order to practice my triads. So if I am looking at a chord progression like this that always sounds good, it makes it more fun to practice as opposed to like running with just a metronome or something like that. So if I have a chord progression I like, it keeps me more inclined to continue the practice, especially if it's an endless chord progression like this. So I'm going to take this chord progression and try and play it in just root position triads first for an example, and then I'll show you how to go a step further with that same concept. So this would be closed position, root position triads on this third string set here. All well and good, but we're kind of moving around and stuff. If you want to make it a little bit more concise, then instead of playing root positions, you can identify where the next first or second inversion potentially the triads may land. So if we start, say, right here, this is an E minor, we're looking for a C major triad, and instead of coming down here to the root position, I know that my next inversion is right there. So I could do something like this, which is known as voice leading. Now if we take that concept and run with it, we'll get something like this. So on and so forth. And the cool thing about triads is they don't just have to be on this string set. You can put them up on any string set you want. They're 3-note chords, obviously, a root, a third, and a fifth. Tri, meaning three, tricycle, triangle, get it? They exist all over the guitar neck, and they also exist in spread form, which is essentially having a string or sometimes two strings in between some of the intervals. So, for example, these are closed positions because the all are right on top of each other. But we could spread this out to give us a little bit more atmosphere, so you can see what the spread voice triads can do for you. And those would also be able to be voice-led if I wasn't sticking to root positions as well. And one last thing I want to show you about this concept is, since we know that this is sort of like a copy and paste situation here where we have this cycle of chords happening, that also allows for coming up with a really cool, maybe arpeggiated lick to go over the minor and major chords, and then basically move that down to continue the process. So really you end up with this massive etude, and I know this because I've already recorded this part. You come up with this massive etude, sort of like a combination between Anastasia by Slash and maybe Cliffs of Dover, something along the lines of like a Trivium meets Avenged Sevenfold meets Eric Johnson sound. It's really interesting, and I never really thought to compose music this way. So I think that's the interesting thing for myself, is coming up with this chord progression and then realizing how much you can kind of milk out of it, juice the orange, if you will. So basically what I have here is, if we take this E minor, I can arpeggiate that, and that is just as simple as understanding the intervals of an E minor chord and choosing ones that you want to put into an arpeggiated form. And if I were playing the chords with this rhythm, this was the arpeggio rhythm. Eighth notes in a 6/8 time signature. So now that I have this concept outline, I'm going to show you the other arpeggios that I came up with. So after this E minor, we come to a C major, and what I went with was something like this. Really nifty. And then for the next chord, I believe was an A minor, we came up with basically just a descending Lydian mode. So I like that sound setting up the final chord, which is an F major in this case, and I essentially arpeggiate a triad arpeggio. So this is just root, third, fifth, and then third, fifth, root. And then we have this, which is just a nifty little dreamy sound. So all together, this is the pattern which you can then transpose as the chords change. so on and so forth. In fact, let's put that to a raucous groove, shall we? Well, there you have it, guys, the never-ending chord progression. Do with it what you will. The information is yours to use as you see fit. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. It was really fun, creatively stimulating for me. I hope it was for you. Check out Guitar Super System if you'd like the full breakdown of music theory, including triads, scales, arpeggios, and all the tips, tricks, and licks that you want to use to improvise and develop your guitar voice. It's all in there for you, baby. And until next time, keep shredding.